What is up, everyone? Welcome back to CageChat MMA. We are here, of course, to preview UFC Vegas 71. We're back in the Apex, back with minimal fans, but we have got a heavyweight clash that will hopefully blow the roof off the gaff and take it to the next level. Now, of course, we're talking about Sergei Pavlovich versus Curtis Blaydes. Now, this is a fight of two styles which could come together and create one incredible war. Obviously, you've got the power hitting in Sergei Pavlovich. You've got the power, the knockouts, the can hit you and hurt you at any moment. You've got Curtis Blaydes, who can take you down, pin you across on the mat and take it over 5 rounds and really dominate you. And he's also got the ability to knock you out with ground and pound. He's called razor blades for a reason. And he's got sharp elbows. And when he lands them, they hurt. And he probably should have a title shot by now. But of course, at the time, Francis Ngannou was a champion and he already had 2 knockout defeats. So he's been on the backbench. He's had to go through the contenders and do it the hard way. And of course, right now the heavyweight division is still a bit of the chain, a bit of the cube, because obviously we need to work out what's happening between John Jones and Stipe Miocic. They were supposed to be planning to fight at International Fight Week, but that's no longer the case because obviously Volkanovski and Yair is on that card, and obviously Pantoja and Moreno are going at it a second time. So that's going to be 2 title fights now, unless they plan a third. I doubt it, because I think Volkanovski will be the main event. I can't see them usurping that and putting Jones and Stipe on the top of that card, especially with it only being 8 weeks away, 7 weeks away. I don't see that happening. Although to be fair, John Jones and Ngannou did turn around in about 5-6 weeks, didn't it? With Francis Ngannou departing the company. So who knows? Maybe it could happen. But I think it's more likely to see Valentina Grasso 2 on that card than Jones and Stipe. So it means, when does that fight happen? Because tonight's winner should be fighting for the title next. Obviously, Cyril Gane has to come back and build away and rebuild after that loss to John Jones. Filling the gaps that we saw from his grappling. They were there against Francis and Ngannou, so he still clearly needs a year or 2, and that's okay because he's 12-2 now, or 10-2. He's still very young in the game. He's only had 13, 14 professional fights, and he rose very quickly because of his style and his power and his kickboxing ability. And, it's okay if he takes 6 to 7 months out of the game just to go in there and grapple and work and wrestle, because we know how good kickboxing is. He just needs to bring the rest up. So tonight's winner should be next in line. If not, they have to fight Gane, at the very least. Maybe I know there's going to be a Paris card allegedly in September, isn't it? If they're going to do a Paris card like they did last year. Gane versus Blaydes or Gane versus Pavlovich would certainly be the main event for that, in my opinion. But it's an interesting one. It is an interesting one because, again, this fight is incredible. It's a shame there isn't fans in there because it has the ability, especially if Pavlovich knocks out Curtis Blaydes. You want that ring of the crowd and that shock factor of the crowd, like he did against Tiger Versa, like he did against Darren Lewis last year. Pavlovich had one of the best 2022s, and he certainly rose to title contention now, not out of nowhere, but he wasn't expecting it going into 2022. And then, of course, he knocked out Shamil Abdurakhimov. He knocked out Derek Lewis in the first round, and then, even more impressively, he knocked out Taito Ivasa. Now, was that Taito Ivasa coming back off a beating from Cyril Gane, or war with Cyril Gane? Was that Taito Ivasa coming back too soon, not letting himself recover? Maybe, but we can't take away the credit from Pavlovich for getting the job done. Ultimately, they both signed up for the task, and Pavlovich came through, and he left the year as one of the fighters of the year and third in his division. A fight with him and Ngannou would have been incredible to see, because it's probably who lands first, isn't it? Let's be honest. And Pavlovich does have a little bit more wrestling, although we did see Ngannou's wrestling against Gane, and Stipe in the rematch. We don't know the level of that fight, so that would have been an interesting fight to see. But of course, Ngannou is currently uncontracted, and we don't know what's happening with him at the moment. He's not boxing yet. He hasn't had a fight announced, so it's a little bit worrying for Francis. Part of me wants to see him come back to the UFC, but it will be a tail between the legs sort of moment, won't it, for him if he did come back? Yes, he might still be the champion, maybe not the champion in name because of how dominant Jones was, but he didn't lose the belt. He gave the belt back, didn't he? So there would be an element of, if Ngannou came back, where does he lie in this division? Of course, the Curtis Blaydes, he's coming off the back of that win against Tom Aspinall, which was a hard win, wasn't it? Because it wasn't a win he could celebrate because it was the knee injury that forced Tom Aspinall the very first kick of the fight. It wasn't like Blaydes was 3 rounds up going into the fourth and his knee went in the fourth. Aspinall, it was just one of those freak injuries that happened at the start of the fight. And obviously Aspinall's on the way to coming back now. And with the card happening in July, you'd expect him to be on the main event, if not co-main event, hopefully against Marcin Tybura. It'd be good that he's had a whole year out. He didn't rush back to get to 286. He stepped back on the sidelines, let Leon Edwards have his moment, let some of the guys have their moment on that card, and he can come back fully fit, fully healthy in July. But Curtis Blaydes, he does things methodically, doesn't he? He goes the distance with Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He goes the distance with Alexander Volkov. He's got knockout wins against Junior Dos Santos, Shamil Abdurakhimov, of course, as does Pavlovich against Abdurakhimov. But more recently, in 2022, he had 2 finishes against Chris Daukaus. That was a nasty knockout that he did against Chris Daukaus. And then obviously Tom Aspinall was a knee injury. So it's not like he's coming to this. He's coming to this in great form, but he's not coming into this off a memorable moment as is Pavlovich. He's not coming from that sort of highlight reel form, which is a little bit not worrying because it feels like that's the nature of Blaydes' career, isn't it? He had that loss to Derek Lewis. He had that loss to 2 losses to Francis Ngannou. But he's a really well-rounded competitor. He can wrestle. He can go 5 rounds, arguably no problem. He's a very likable character. Maybe he's a bit too quiet. I seen an article about how I'm saying he'd want to sit out and wait for the title shot, which never really works out well. The UFC like you to, and Dana particularly like to see you say, "Oh, I want the title fight next," or "I want to fight until I get the title. I don't want to sit out," because they almost let that as it's almost like writing your own sort of death wish almost in the UFC, because fans want to see you fight and want to see you keep active and keep that stardom going along. So sometimes he puts his foot in his mouth. But when he's in the cage, he's incredible to watch. Yes, he might not be a star that every fan wants to tune in. They want to tune in and see Pavlovich knock everyone out in the first round. But you have to admire what he brings to the table with his grappling and his presence and his ability to just keep going. And we'll have a look at the tape, because again, it is an intriguing fight, an intriguing contest. 17-1 against 17-3, so similar records. Obviously 6-3 against 6-4. That's an error in my part on the graphics. I do apologise. 5'4" Curtis Blaydes would be definitely not be fighting in the heavyweight division, but Pavlovich does have 4-inch reach advantage on Curtis Blaydes, which could be a problem for Blaydes. Of course, we saw it with the Derek Lewis fight. If you remember. Blaydes shooting in and got the uppercut from Derek Lewis. That's what knocked him out. So you could definitely see Pavlovich doing a similar thing. If Blaydes tries to come in with that extra reach, he has to come in he has to try and get in that closer distance, albeit being a taller guy. He has to work around the arms of Pavlovich, and that could be problematic. And it also could benefit Pavlovich, because albeit up against the cage, albeit that Blaydes is the longer guy, Pavlovich has more to get the underhooks and get the overhooks and defend those takedowns. So it could be a really intriguing fight. And similarly, if Blaydes can get Pavlovich up against the cage and wear on him for the first 2 rounds, let's say, how's Pavlovich going to come out in round 3, round 4, round 5? Is he going to be gassed? Obviously, the acid in his arms, is that power going to drain away from him in the 3rd and 4th round? Is he going to be as dangerous? And can Blaydes almost coast it from round 3? So it is a really intriguing fight. I think it does goes down to how those first 2 rounds go, because I think Pavlovich has the ability to get it done within those 2 rounds. But if Blaydes wants to come in there and use his grappling knowledge and grappling prowess and can get it done and nullify the power of Pavlovich, then it can really draw out to 5 rounds. And if you're going for a fight, a unanimous decision bet, so to speak, I'd say it's Curtis Blaydes all day. But I think Pavlovich gets it done. I think he gets another first round finish. I think unfortunately it's going to be too much power for Blaydes, and I think it'd be similar to the Derek Lewis that I can see Blaydes coming in to try and get a takedown and just getting caught by an uppercut or a left hook or a right hook, so to speak, and maybe a bit ground and pound, it'll be done. And I think Pavlovich etches his name to be the next in line for the title, or definitely not, as we mentioned at the top of the show. You have to fight Garn next. And rebuild that sort of narrative, because especially if you want to keep active as well. Because let's say Stipe and Jones don't fight until November. Once Stipe doesn't fight regularly, I would say John Jones doesn't. He hasn't. He's been inactive up until March. You might not be fighting again until June next year. So if you're fighting, in April today. You want to be fighting in October or September, November. Maybe get on the same card as the Jones-Stipe fight. Maybe call yourself the backup, so to speak, but make sure you've got someone in there to dance with on the night if that fight goes ahead as you'd expect. And Silgan would be perfect for that. As maybe Tom Aspinall versus Tybura. I know it's still 3 months down the line, but if Tom Aspinall gets a quick finish or Tybura gets a quick finish, you can certainly see an Aspinall Blaydes 2 because that's unfinished. But definitely Aspinall versus Pavlovich or Aspinall versus Taito Vasa, that would certainly be in the mix later down the year, you'd expect. Of course. But yeah, I'm going to go with Pavlovich to get it done. I'm going to say gets it done within 2. I think he gets it done in 1, but I think that first round's very critical to see what happens. But yeah, fantastic fight. The card as a whole isn't the best card. I can see why it's in the Apex. It's got some name value to it. It's got some good fights to it. And these cards do spring up some very good moments, don't they? You see it in the past where you used to look at the card on a Friday or a Saturday morning and you go, do I want to tune into this one? Do I want to watch this one? Yes. Because there's some good names. Bobby Green, versus Jared Gordon is going to be an incredible fight. Neither of those two back down, and both of them can bring performance of the night bonuses as and when they want. Brad Tavares versus Bruno Silva could be a jiu-jitsu masterclass from Silva, or can Tavares keep it on the feet and put in a very good performance himself? There's spots here on the card that you want to be tuning in for. Ronnie Yar versus Montel Jackson in the bantamweight division, but it is one of those cards where you go, I'll catch it on the highlights on Sunday. Now, for the UK and the European audience, this is an earlier card. I would propose, and the fight staff would brought up a good point, I'd propose that's because of the Tank Garcia fight. They didn't want to clash with that. So they brought it forward a little bit, as they can do in the Apex and being on ESPN+. They're less so dictated by schedule of the TV, of course. But as we know, Tank versus Garcia is going to be taking everyone's screens tonight. And what better way to go into that fight with a heavyweight clash? And you'd like to guarantee a finish, wouldn't you, going into that Tank Garcia fight from the winner of tonight's card in Vegas? But yes, I like Brad Tavares versus Bruno Silva. That is a fantastic co-main event. Obviously, Brad Tavares, he is currently 19-7. Bruno Silva 22-8. It's a fantastic fight in the middleweight division. The winner would be just outside the rank. You'd expect maybe a Chris Curtis next or a Jack Hermansson. I believe those two are fighting. They thought Jack Hermansson and Chris Curtis, but I saw Hermansson might be in a fight with an Imavov maybe, or maybe Curtis is fighting Imavov. Pardon me for butchering that, but the middleweight division at the back end is quite tasty at the moment, and whoever wins tonight will certainly be joining that sort of section of the middleweight division where there's some tasty round robin fights, so to speak. Bobby Green versus Jared Gordon, as we said, this fight's going to be incredible. Obviously, Jared Gordon coming off the back of that loss, potentially controversial loss against Paddy Pimblett. Of course, he's been injured and seemingly isn't going to be fighting this year, or if not, to the back end of the year, November, December, which is horrible to see, especially with 2 London cards. You'd expected him to be on both of them. But unfortunately not. So he is 2-2. Joe Selecki wins over Joe Selecki and Leonardo Santos, losses to Grant Dawson and Paddy Pimblett, although many thought that Jared won that. I thought Paddy Pimblett just edged it, based off the lack of action in the third round from both of those, but particularly Jared Gordon didn't do as much damage. It was quite dominant, but I think Paddy Pimblett outdid the damage in the third round. But it was very, very tight. Whereas Bobby Green, he came off the back of 2 losses against Islam Makhachev, who's now champion, of course. He did take that fight on short notice. I believe that was meant to be Arman Tsarukyan or maybe RDA going into that fight with Makhachev. And then he got knocked out by Drew Dober, but he was looking fantastic in that fight. He almost got Drew Dober, I believe, out there in the first round. But he just got clipped walking back towards the cage. He got clipped. And it happens, doesn't it? And Drew Dober came away with the victor. But that could have been a very different result. Back in December of this year, his last one was against Nasrat Haqparast back in February last year. So a win's important to him, but his losses are Rafael Vaziev, who's now not a top 10 contender. Thiago Moises, who's floated around the top 15, top 10 in the past, So it is just getting back in there and getting the win tonight. But I'd say if Bobby Green wins tonight, a Paddy Pimblett fight would be doable. Obviously, Jared Gordon, I'd say whoever wins tonight probably gets Paddy Pimblett, because I know Paddy Pimblett is called out for the rematch with Gordon, and there's still enough there to rebook it after the finish and after the decision's been read out. So you'd imagine that fight's next for either or tonight, 100%. But yeah, going back to the main event, obviously Bruno Silva, co-main event, comes 2 losses to Alex Pereira, former champion, and Jared Meerschaert. He got submitted by Meerschaert back in August of last year. Brad Tavares also coming off a loss to Dricus du Plessis, who's now fighting Robert Whittaker. That's going to be a very interesting fight. I was thinking earlier, despite not being the champion, Robert Whittaker might be the hardest fighter in the middleweight division, which feels silly to say when Israel Adesanya's beating the complete top 5. But I thought they might take the du Plessis to Adesanya route, more so because it's a fresh opponent for Adesanya. But the fact that Robert Whittaker's taking that fight, I think Robert Whittaker will be chomping at the bit to get that fight, because it's a fight that could go to the war, but with Dricus du Plessis' ability to gas out in the second round, Robert Whittaker will eat all over that, and the Reaper will certainly, take du Plessis to dark waters, and you expect him to get the win, which will, produce another contender for Adesanya, and what he does next. So again, it's a good fight. It's a good fight on paper. You'd expect Whittaker to win that and probably set up a third fight with Adesanya. But yeah, just a little bit weird matchmaking wise. You'd rather give du Plessis up to the champion, see what happens there, and then let him fight the top 5 contenders. But yeah, interesting fight nonetheless. He did have previous wins to Antonio Carlos Jr. and Amari Medov, was his most recent win back in 2021. So yeah, I'm going to go with Bruno Silva to get the job done. He's got fantastic submissions, doesn't he? Bruno Silva. Last wins were the Jordan Wright, Andrew Sanchez, Wellington Turman. So he's got some good wins on his record. All finishes those 3 fights as well. So yes, good co-main event. It's probably going to be one of those cards where if the first fight, which is about Gerald Dana versus Brady Highstand, if one of these fights in the prelims catch fire, then you're going to be in for a fantastic night of action. But yes, let's finish off the main card though. You got Yasmin Lucindo versus Brogan Walker. That's in the flyweight division, women's flyweight division. Jeremiah Wells versus Matthew Semmelsberger. That could be a cracking fight. Semmelsberger's a beast, and always comes to fight and always puts in a performance of the night or fight of the night contender. So that's going to be a cracking fight to open up the main card. Ricky Glenn versus Christos Giagos in the 155-pound division. That's going to be the featured prelim. As we mentioned, Rani Yaha versus Montel Jackson. That's going to be an incredible fight in the 135-pound division. No bantamweight fight ever misses. It's the most exciting division to watch, no matter if you're watching the champion fight the next contender, as we will with Aljamain Sterling versus Henry Cejudo next week, I believe, if not the week after. Or you come down to the top 20, the top 25, wherever you stick a bantamweight fight in, you're in for a good night. Carol Rhodes versus Norma Dumont. Now, we know that Nunes and Pena are fighting in the trilogy bout, but it feels like the winner of this will probably get the next chance at the featherweight title, so to speak. If not, you're looking at calling out one of the bantamweights maybe and saying come up to 145, because it is a lackluster division. I don't know why it's still a division in all truth. I thought they should maybe give the 145-pound division to a Bellator or a PFL, and maybe even Invicta. If it was me, I'd give it to Invicta and take the atomweight division, because there's some atomweights in the strawweight division currently that you can see come down to that division and fill it out, so to speak. But yeah, an interesting fight. If Norma Dumont wins that, she's certainly next to neither Nunes, but where is Nunes' future at featherweight? Does she want to keep defending that title? I guess she has to. But it always feels like without her as champion, there's no reason to have a division, so to speak. But that feels disrespectful to the fighters that are on the roster that fight in the female featherweight division, because ultimately one of them should be champion and could be an active champion. But the UFC has failed on building that division, unfortunately. Mohamed Usman versus Junior Tafa. That's going to be an incredible fight in the heavyweight division. Obviously, brothers of Justin Tafa and Kamaru Usman. So a little bit of a rivalry there. A bit of sibling love there. The fact you're going to have 2 brothers on either side in the corners is pretty cool to think of, really. But yeah, obviously Mohamed Usman was in the PFL. A2 came through the Ultimate Fighter series last year. So yeah, incredible fight. I doubt it goes the distance. I think it's going to be a 2-round slobber knocker, as they say. Francis Marshall against William Gomez. Of course, William Gomez, incredible fighter. 11-2, fighting out of France. He's fought on Aries. I believe he was the Aries champion at one point. Maybe at Aries FC7, and then of course he got signed to UFC. Made his debut against Jarno Aarons. But yeah, he's a fantastic fight to see. He got a win over Tobias Harila in Cage Warriors. If you watch Cage Warriors, you know Tobias Harila very well. Comes out with, I believe, it's forgotten me. Comes out with one of the best walkouts. You have to watch it. He's got losses to Morgan Sherry, former Cage Warriors champion. So he's been through the European circuit. Unfortunately, he had a fight with Dylan Logan cancelled. That would have been a good fight. Henan Barao, he had a fight cancelled with. That would have been a cracking fight also. Keep an eye out for William Gomez as well, because he could be something special in that 145-pound division. Maybe a win against William Gomez, or for William Gomez, and you get William Gomez versus Paul Hughes in London, let's say. That would be pretty cool, wouldn't it? But Dana versus Brady Hiestand. Brady Hiestand, also a tough alumni, coming through the 135-pound division. That's opening up the card. We did lose Song Yudong versus Ricky Simone. That's going to be the main event for next year because Sarukin and Moicano fell with Moicano injured. We did get Priscilla Cachoeira missed weight by 4 pounds yesterday, so that bout against Karine Silva is going to be cancelled. Unfortunately, you have to feel sorry for Karine Silva because she's done everything in her powers to be able to make the walk tonight, but unfortunately, a problem with her opponent, and I would say unprofessionalism for her opponent at the moment is unfair on her to not be able to go out and do her job tonight. But yes, overall good cards. There's some good names in there, some good value in there across the card. Maybe not the best matchups or the most exciting matchups you maybe want to see, but these cards always deliver in the end, don't they? So yes, I'll be back to review on Monday, of course. Enjoy the fights. Go and enjoy Tank and Garcia as well, because boxing's actually giving us one of the best fights they could possibly make. I know, Tyson Fury and the rest are not giving us what we want, but Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Davis are finally doing something that makes us MMA fans want to go watch boxing for once. I'll leave it there, guys. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to follow us at CageChat MMA across all socials: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook. And I'll see you guys on the next one.